She flinched like I'd tried to slap her. All I did was reach for her hand. We were sitting at a table for two at Lakeside Grill, our old anniversary spot. Cloth napkins, candlelight, string quartet in the corner playing something meant to sound expensive. She was in a sequin navy dress that shimmered under the overhead lights like a disco ball with attitude. I wore the jacket she bought me 5 Christmases ago, back when she still noticed if I looked handsome or tired. I reached across the white tablecloth, not even dramatic about it. Just a small, quiet motion. She looked at me like I'd just embarrassed her in front of an audience. "We're not doing this in public," she snapped, pulling her hand back like mine had bacteria. "Stop acting like it's still that kind of marriage." Still that kind of marriage. As if affection now had an expiration date. As if holding my wife's hand after 30 years in the freezing warehouses of the Midwest was somehow cringe. I didn't say a word. I didn't push. I just sat back, sliced into my prime rib, and chewed. She scrolled on her phone between bites of nothing. When the dessert menu came, she smiled sweetly. For the waiter. Not for me. And that right there, that's the part that really gutted me. The smile I used to get just for bringing her coffee in the morning was now reserved for strangers. I'd become less than the help. And listen, if you're reading this, especially you guys over 50, you probably know that feeling better than you'll admit out loud. That slow, humiliating shrinkage of your presence. The ghosting that happens inside the house, before she even packs a bag. The silence at dinner. The closed bedroom door. The way they laugh louder on the phone with friends than they ever have with you. That night, when we got home, Elise slipped out of her heels, tossed her clutch on the couch, and muttered, "Don't wait up." Guest room door shut. Lock clicked. I sat in the kitchen, light above the stove humming. I poured myself a glass of water and stared at the fridge for a long time. The magnet from our Cancun trip was still there, tilted slightly sideways, holding up a to-do list with only one thing crossed off. Fix garage light. That was mine. The rest, call caterer, book spa day, pick up foundation, none of that had anything to do with me. And that's when I walked down to the basement, moved the boxes aside, opened the old 2-drawer cabinet she never asks about. Top drawer, insurance docs. Second drawer, a manila folder I hadn't touched in 3 years. I slid it out. The tab still said just in case. 3 words I wrote during the first time she came home, wearing a different perfume, and claimed it was from the women at yoga. That was 7 years ago. I didn't believe her then. I just wasn't ready to move. But now, I placed the folder on the desk, opened my laptop, and started printing. Records. Statements. Old emails. I wasn't even sure why I was doing it, yet. But something had shifted in me at that dinner table. Something hard, cold, and done. Elise thinks silence means surrender. That a man who doesn't argue is a man who's given up. No. Sometimes silence is inventory. Measurement. Calculation. And here's something else I've calculated. 97% of people who find stories like this never hit that little subscribe button. I get it. You're just scrolling. But if you've ever felt like your dignity got treated like background noise, maybe do it. It helps our team keep sharing stories that some folks would rather stay buried. Back to that folder. Page after page started sliding out of the printer. Old travel receipts she never explained. Social media screenshots. The prenup clause I asked my lawyer to highlight in yellow ink. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I knew this. She refused to be a wife to me in private? Then I'd make damn sure she'd never pretend to be one in public again. 2 days after the dinner, Elise posted a picture of us to Instagram. The caption read, 29 years and still laughing. Love you. Declinking glasses 2 hearts #anniversary vibes #blessed. I wasn't even in the frame properly, just the edge of my shoulder, blurry. She'd cropped me out like a bad haircut. But the comments poured in anyway. Goals. You guys are the cutest. Hope I have a marriage like yours one day, smiling face with hard eyes. She answered every comment with a heart emoji, sometimes a thank you, sweetie, like she was auditioning for a Hallmark card. Meanwhile, I was in the kitchen pouring her soy milk into a travel mug like some kind of unpaid assistant. She walked in, saw me, and said, "Hey, can you take the trash out before I get back? I'm already late." "For what?" I asked. "Work dinner. Might run long." She didn't work nights. Never had. I nodded anyway. Took out the trash. Watched her leave in a dress I'd never seen before. Low back. Gold zipper. She hadn't dressed like that for me in 10 years. That night, I did something I should have done years ago. I mirrored her cloud. I'd always been the tech guy in the house. Not that she ever gave a damn about how things actually worked. Elise loved the performance of modern life, but not the details. Passwords, I managed them. Backups, I maintained them. So when I installed a silent second sync of her phone's content to a hidden drive on my laptop, I wasn't hacking. I was just leveraging her arrogance. Photos, screenshots, DMs, notes, voice memos, and it all came in like a flood. Elise had hundreds of selfies. Pouty face in front of hotel mirrors. Champagne flutes. Balcony views. Most tagged #work trip or #networking night. None of those nights matched her real job's calendar. None of those hotels were in the cities she claimed to be visiting. Then I noticed the name, Jay from work, appearing over and over again. At first, he was just a shadow, half a reflection in a wine glass, an arm resting casually in the corner of a frame. Then came the message history, selectively deleted on her end, but synced in full to the cloud. Last night was fire. Still thinking about your neck. Tell roommate, you're stuck in traffic again, LOL. Roommate. That one stopped me cold. That's what she'd been calling me to him. To her friends. Even to her sister, I'd soon find out. Dennis is harmless, she'd texted once. Like a sweet old neighbor who forgets where he parked. No rage. No yelling. Not even heartbreak, really. Just a quiet shift. I created a new folder on my laptop. Timeline. Every message got a date. Every trip, a location. I layered in photos. I matched outfits. Hotel receipts from the joint account she thought I never checked. Calendar entries with fake events. I wasn't just collecting evidence. I was building a structure. She posted a video the next day, her laughing over brunch. Caption. He still makes me giggle, smiling face with hearts. I was in the background, blurry again, reading the bill. No one noticed me. She tagged the location wrong. Because she hadn't had brunch with me. She'd spliced together an old clip. Her dress that day was blue. In the post, it was red. She'd edited herself into a lie. And what do you do when someone turns your life into a filtered fiction? You don't scream. You don't slam doors. You start documenting the truth. Quietly. Patiently. Because when it all collapses, and it will, the only thing that cuts through the pretty pictures is cold, brutal, undeniable clarity. Wednesday morning, a bouquet arrived. 12 blood-red roses, wrapped in black tissue paper with a velvet ribbon so thick it looked like something from a mafia funeral. The doorbell rang, and Elise all but sprinted to answer it. I watched from the hallway, holding my coffee, unseen. She took the box from the delivery guy with a girlish giggle I hadn't heard since Clinton was in office. Her shoulders pulled up, her lips parted in this breathy little surprised teenager act. She stepped into the kitchen with the flowers like she was floating. Set them down on the island. Didn't even notice me standing 5 feet away. Then she saw the card. Her whole body paused, subtle, but unmistakable. I tilted my head and walked over slowly, sipping my mug. The card was simple. Handwritten. Black ink on cream stock. Last night was perfect. Same time Friday. Jay? The way her face changed, it was like watching someone switch languages mid-sentence. She spun toward the sink with a fake gasp. Oh my God, what the hell is this? I played dumb. Raised one eyebrow. Secret admirer? I asked. Her laugh was jagged. This isn't for me. It must be a mistake. Probably for the neighbors. They just moved in, right? Younger couple. I walked closer, reading the note again like it was a crossword puzzle. You don't say. She picked up the bouquet, turned toward the door. I'll bring it over later. Honestly, people are so careless with deliveries these days. Sure, I said. Still, nice to see you smile like that again. Been a while. That one hit. She blinked. Her face twitched. Then she pasted on another smile like over-applied concealer. She carried the flowers off like radioactive waste. By that evening, the roses were nowhere in the house. Neither trash can had them. Not the garage, not the compost bin. She'd hidden them. But I didn't bother looking further. I had something better. That Christmas, I'd upgraded our front door camera system. Elise had rolled her eyes, called it boomer tech paranoia, but I'd insisted, blamed the rise in porch thefts, which wasn't even a lie. I went into my office, pulled up the app, and replayed the footage. There she was, stepping out in her robe, hair still curled, a bounce in her step I hadn't seen in years. She opened the door, smiled like she'd just won a cruise, and signed the tablet with a practiced flick of her wrist. Smiling, looking straight at the bouquet like it was the missing piece of her week. The signature screen paused on her name, Elise K. Hargrove. Crystal clear. Even added a little heart over the I. That night, she came back from drinks with Jess. Hair disheveled, cheeks flushed, no takeout bag. She kicked off her heels, dropped her purse, and muttered, "You forgot to take the trash out again." I didn't argue. I just nodded and said, "You're right." Then added a new line to the timeline. Wednesday, 6:42 a.m., flower delivery from J. Card read, "Last night was perfect. Same time Friday." Elise smiled. Signed for them. Lied. Claimed mistake. Disposed discreetly. I also added the florist's name from the label on the packaging. Stone and Branch, Artisan Flowers, Wauwatosa. I made a note to call them later. Just a casual inquiry. Maybe send a bouquet of my own. See if they kept records. I wasn't collecting petals. I was collecting patterns. "Elise," I said, as she buzzed around the kitchen tapping through her phone like her fingers were trying to win a race. "I was thinking we should do dinner this year. Just us. No brunch with the girls, no couples thing with the Westbrooks. Just the two of us." She looked up like I'd asked her to chaperone a funeral. "What for?" "Our anniversary." Pause. "Oh, right," she said, then slid back into her screen. I guess. Depends on the place. Somewhere nice, though? I'm not dressing up for Applebee's." I smiled. Wouldn't dream of it. That was the first yes I'd gotten from her in months. Not because she wanted time with me, but because she wanted the optics. Elise wasn't married to a man. She was married to a narrative. And a fancy dinner with a good dress and curated lighting? That was content. Later that night, I watched her browse dresses online. She saved 3, all tight in the waist and high in the thigh. None of them things she'd ever worn for me. She ordered 2-day shipping. I'd already booked the reservation. But what Elise didn't know was that while she was planning her outfit, I was planning a presentation. Not for her, though. For someone else. Friday morning, I drove down to a squat little office building off Water Street. The kind that still had carpet from the 90s and buzzers instead of keycards. Suite 2B, Miller and Associates, Investigative Services. It used to be a law office. Now it was just Miller. Retired cop, semi-retired PI. Mostly took cheating spouses and petty insurance cases. But I didn't want action. I wanted precision. The waiting room smelled like dust and coffee grounds. There was one chair with duct tape on the armrest. He came out himself. 60s, square jaw, gray beard, denim shirt tucked into iron slacks. No pretense. No handshake. Just a slow nod. "You Dennis?" "I am." "Let's go." We sat across from each other in his back office. Fluorescent lights flickering above. One of those oscillating fans pointed at the wall for no reason. I placed the folder down on the table between us. It made a satisfying sound, just heavy enough. He flipped through it slowly. Didn't say much. Photos. Screenshots. The flower delivery receipt. A printed list of hotels, timestamps, notes in the margins. One page had a map with a date circled in red. He looked up. "You want to go scorched earth, or just play a quiet hand?" "Just clarity," I said. "For me. For her. For the people watching." "You think there'll be an audience?" "There always is," I replied. "Especially when someone like her's been putting on a show for years." He nodded again, took out a yellow legal pad, and began jotting things down. "Jay from work." "Not actually from her job," I said. "I think he's married. 2 kids. Saw a car seat in the back of his truck once. She calls him Jay in the messages." "Want me to verify?" I nodded. "I want everything. His wife's name. Address. Photos. Kids' names redacted." "Done." "What's the timeline?" "Our anniversary dinner is next Friday. 7:30 p.m. at Marietta's on Lakeview." His eyes finally lit up. "Good choice. Classy. Dim lighting. I want you there. Discreet. Walk in at 7:45. Nothing dramatic. Just enough." He tapped the table. "You got it." I pulled out the envelope. Paid in cash. No trail. No paperclip. Just clean bills and quiet understanding. As I stood to leave, he looked at me and said, "This isn't the first one of these I've done. But I'll say this, you're handling it better than most." I smiled. "I've had practice." As I stepped outside, the clouds cracked open for a sliver of sun. Just enough to hit the windshield. I got in the car, took a breath, and turned the engine. Elise was at home by then, posting mirror selfies in her new dress. Caption: which one for next Friday, y'all? Comments pouring in. OMG slay. That neckline though fire. Dennis better be treating you like a queen. He would. He just had a different kind of crown in mind. 2 days before the dinner, we sat on opposite sides of the living room like strangers waiting in a dentist's office. She was sprawled across the sectional in a silk robe, legs folded under her, scrolling TikTok with the volume way too loud. I was reading a book I had no interest in, the spine stiff from disuse. The sound of someone lip-syncing a motivational quote about knowing your worth bounced off the walls. I lowered my book. Elise, I said calmly, anything you want to talk about? She didn't even look up, just shifted her body and let out a sigh like I'd interrupted something important. Not unless you've suddenly become interesting, she muttered, eyes still on her screen. I let out a soft laugh. Not mocking, not bitter, just amused. Fair enough, I said, then stood up and walked toward the kitchen, and left my phone, unlocked, on the counter, right next to the fruit bowl she never used and the old speaker she said clashed with the vibe of a new backsplash. I made sure the screen stayed lit, made sure the preview notification was visible. New message from R. Monroe. She's lying again. Got the footage. You were right. I didn't watch her react. I poured a glass of water, took a sip, then walked outside, leaned on the porch rail, and stared out into the dusk like a man with no clue. Inside, behind the blinds, I knew exactly what was happening. I'd named the contact, R. Monroe, after a street she'd never driven on. Generic enough to avoid suspicion, unfamiliar enough to unsettle her. I'd even added a stock photo of a man in sunglasses to the contact image. Not too young, not too clean, just credible enough. 5 minutes passed. She didn't come out. 10 minutes. Then the screen door creaked behind me. You forgot your phone, she said. I turned slowly, took it from her hand. Our fingers didn't touch. Thanks. She lingered. I glanced at her. Her lips were tight, hands clasped, fidgety. She wanted to ask, but couldn't without admitting she saw the message. You okay? I asked. I'm fine. Just tired. Long day. Yeah, she said quickly. A lot going on at work. I nodded. Sure. She stood there a second longer, then turned and went back in. I followed a few minutes later, casually checking the device logs on the back end of the sync system. She'd opened the message, then checked my browser history, then swiped through my texts, stopped at R. Monroe, and stared for 41 seconds. The data didn't lie. Unlike Elise, back in the living room, she was curled up again, pretending to be relaxed. But her leg bounced, small, quick movements. The silk of her robe twitched with each jitter. I sat back down with my book, watched her out of the corner of my eye. She glanced at me, smiled too wide. You sure everything's okay? I asked. Of course, she chirped. Why wouldn't it be? No reason. Later that night, she stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, fixing her hair. She'd put on perfume to go to bed, something sweet and defensive. I watched her brush her teeth, eyes darting toward my phone on the nightstand. She slept poorly, tossed, turned, flinched at every notification buzz from my phone. But I didn't get a single text. The silence was louder than any confrontation. And the best part? The message from R. Monroe wasn't a bluff. The footage was real. I just hadn't shown her which one yet. The email came in at 3:12 a.m. Subject line, Elise H. The body was short. The attachments were not. Miller had worked fast, faster than I expected, to be honest. Either the guy was still sharper than he let on, or this wasn't the first wife he'd caught swan diving out of her own marriage. Probably both. There were 12 JPGs, 3 PDFs, 1 MP4. I downloaded everything to an encrypted drive and opened the first image. Elise, in a black trench coat, standing outside the Harborside Inn on Lakefield. She was laughing, hands mid-gesture, her body turned toward a man whose face was pixelated. Until image 5. Image 5 showed him clearer. J. Dark hair, salt and pepper beard, wedding ring on. Same man I'd seen on her phone. Same one from the bouquet delivery card. The PDF labeled Room Charges, March-April, had 2 names blacked out. But the final page? Full billing records. Elise K. Hargrove. Room 412. 2 nights. Spa add-on. Rose petal turned down service. So much for team offsite. The second PDF was even better, a corporate directory from Elise's firm. No one named Jay. Not in marketing, not in ops, not anywhere. Jay from work wasn't just married. He wasn't even real in the context she'd given me. Miller's last gift was the MP4. It started with background chatter, women talking over each other, clinking glasses. One of those wine bar networking things Elise loved posting about. Then her voice cut through, louder than the rest. Dennis? He still thinks we're married. Laughter. I'm just collecting wife points to cash out. He folds laundry and pays property taxes. I fake smiles and give him one birthday kiss a year. One woman said something muffled. Elise replied, "No, I don't feel bad. He's boring. Like, Costco socks boring." The rest of the clip was unusable after that. I'd heard enough. I didn't get angry. Instead, I got organized. I added it all to the folder. Labeled, tabbed, indexed. This wasn't emotional anymore. It was strategic. I opened my safe and pulled out a sealed envelope, one I hadn't touched in over a decade. Inside was a notarized amendment to our prenuptial agreement. A clause I'd added when Elise first started talking like marriage was a trap for women. Infidelity clause. Trigger. Adultery, proven by material evidence or testimony. Consequence. Full asset protection, including premarital property and financial insulation of retirement accounts. She had signed it at a resort in Scottsdale, back when she still wore sundresses and twirled her wine glass like a flirtatious magician. At the time, she'd laughed and said, "Whatever. I'm not the cheating type. You're the one that wears loafers." I scanned it, printed a clean copy, and slid it into the folder behind the image of her exiting room 412. Then I made one call. Miller picked up on the second ring. "Got it all," he said. "You want it in flash format too?" "Yes. Flash and physical. And I want you at Marietta's. Friday, 7:45 sharp." He chuckled. "She gonna be mid-toast?" "She always is," I said. "Silent entrance or public?" "Just quiet enough to make it sting." I hung up. The folder was now 2 inches thick. I snapped a leather strap around it, set it on my nightstand, stared at it for a moment. It didn't look like revenge. It looked like closure. But I wasn't there yet. There was still one more performance left in her. One last round of laughter. One more speech about us and growth and how far we've come. And when she lifted that champagne flute, she'd see what it looked like when the audience walks out mid-act. The hostess greeted us like we were regulars. In a way, we were, just not for the reasons she thought. Elise wore the navy dress she picked from her pole, the one with the slit up the side and the sheer panels on the back. Her hair was curled perfectly, nails French-tipped, lashes long and fake, like her affections. She clung to my arm walking in, laughing too loud at something no one said. All for the cameras. All for the crowd. The maitre d' led us to a corner booth with a waterfront view. Candlelight, crisp linens, that faint smell of rosemary and money. Elise made sure to sit where the skyline shimmered behind her for the photos. Her phone propped discreetly with the timer app running. Click, click, smile. She posed, then leaned over and whispered, "You could at least try to look like you love me. These are going online." I smiled for her, and for the last time. Dinner began with oysters and surface-level chit-chat. She commented on the waiter's accent, made jokes about us growing old but not boring, and even reached for my hand when the couple next to us started singing softly to each other. It was choreography, a social charade, but the best actors forget when the third wall breaks. Halfway through the entree, she raised her glass and cleared her throat. "To us," she began, "to 29 years of endurance, growth, and—" She glanced around, eyes catching the glances from nearby tables. Laughter. "Not everyone gets a love story that lasts this long." We did. A few people clapped politely. She beamed. I lifted my glass and toasted back, gently clinking it with hers. "Endurance and laughter," I echoed. Then I reached down, pulled the leather-bound folder from the bag beside me, and laid it on the table. No words. No flourish. Just a quiet thud against the tablecloth. She blinked. "What's this?" I didn't answer, just leaned back in my chair and took a sip of water. She looked at the folder like it was a prop she hadn't rehearsed with. She placed her hand on it slowly, fingertips tense, then opened it. The first page was the notarized prenup clause. The second, surveillance still of her kissing Jay, in a hotel parking lot. The third, a hotel bill with her name, itemized with a romance package add-on. The fourth, a transcript of her wine night confession. By page 7, the blood had drained from her face. Her laugh came out high-pitched, strained, brittle. "Oh, come on," she said, looking around. "You've been watching too many thrillers, Dennis." More nervous chuckling. This is like a movie plot. What is this, some kind of prank? Are we on YouTube right now?" She turned to me, forcing a smirk. And then it came. A tap on her shoulder. Gentle, deliberate. She froze, turned, and stared into the face of the man standing behind her. Silver hair, dark blazer, calm eyes. A leather satchel under his arm. "Ma'am," he said quietly, but clearly enough for the next 2 tables to hear. "You don't know me, but everything in that folder? I verified it. And more." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. He placed a small black flash drive next to her wine glass. "You can lie to your husband. You can lie to your friends. But this," he nodded toward the folder, "this doesn't lie." Then he looked at me. I nodded once. He walked away without another word. She stared after him, lips trembling. I leaned forward, placed my napkin on the table, and smiled. Dinner had just begun, but her performance was over. For a few seconds, Elise didn't move. Her perfectly curated expression, eyebrows slightly lifted, lips parted just enough to suggest innocent confusion, had frozen into something unfiltered. Raw. She stared at the gray-haired man, Miller, like he was a ghost from a past she'd buried so deep, even she had forgotten where. Her mouth opened once, twice. No words came. Only the faint clink of her bracelet against the wine glass as her hand began to tremble. "Ma'am," he repeated softly, but with the kind of authority that doesn't need to be loud. "Everything in that folder? I verified it. And more." She looked down, as if to confirm it wasn't a nightmare. The photos, the timelines, the receipts, the MP4 transcriptions. And now, next to her plate of untouched halibut, a flash drive in a small black case with the label, "Evidence Copy, Elise H." She tried to laugh again, desperate for the performance to resume. "I don't even know who you are," she hissed under her breath, just above a whisper. "This is harassment." "No, ma'am," Miller replied, calm as a glacier. "This is accountability." Then he looked around slowly, giving her a moment to feel the weight of the room. People were watching now. Not everyone, but enough. One couple 3 tables over had paused mid-fork. The younger woman whispered something behind her menu. The waiter nearby tried to pretend he wasn't listening, but his eyes kept darting toward the drive. Miller straightened his coat. "Here's how this goes. You can begin your exit quietly. Tonight. No scenes, no drama. Or," he gestured gently toward the folder, "everything in there gets legs. And believe me, your curated brand won't survive the sprint." Then he stepped back and walked away. No rush. No final threat. Just a man exiting a scene he no longer needed to direct. Elise turned back to me like she was suddenly weightless, her spine hollow, her smile completely gone. Her lipstick had faded at the edges. She looked smaller, like the glamour had been drained out of her cell by cell. "You," she whispered, voice cracking. "You did this to humiliate me." "No," I said quietly, setting down my fork. "You did that. I'm just making sure you don't get away with pretending you didn't." "I can explain." "Please do," I said, nodding toward the folder. "Start with page 4. Room 412. You ordered the rose petal service." She didn't move. Her hand hovered near the flash drive like it might explode. "Do you know what this'll do to me?" she asked. I picked up my water and took a long sip. "That depends," I said, "on whether you pick it up or pretend it doesn't exist." She was still frozen when the waiter arrived with the dessert menu. I think I need to go to the restroom," she muttered. "Of course," I said. As she stood, she staggered slightly, one heel catching on the edge of the carpet. She reached out, then thought better of it, and didn't touch me. She walked toward the back, head down. Halfway there, a woman from another table leaned over to her date and whispered, "That's her. The one who." I didn't hear the rest. Didn't need to. I sat back, cut into the lemon tart the waiter had brought without asking, and calmly removed a small envelope from my jacket. Inside it, her signature, from the prenup clause, time-stamped, notarized, laminated, just for effect. Somewhere in that bathroom, Elise was either hyperventilating or texting Jay for a lifeline he couldn't provide. Meanwhile, I enjoyed my dessert. Because dignity? It has a flavor. And that night, it tasted like citrus and justice. Elise came back from the bathroom, looking like she'd walked through a hurricane made of glass. Her lipstick had been wiped off in patches, foundation smeared along the edge of one nostril, like she'd been dabbing tears, badly. She walked slower now, the sway in her hips gone, replaced by the careful steps of someone trying not to collapse under invisible weight. She sat down without a word, didn't touch her wine, didn't look at the folder, just stared at her plate like the halibut might give her a way out. I sliced into my steak with quiet precision. Rare, juicy, perfectly seared. I chewed, swallowed, dabbed my mouth with the cloth napkin. A man fully present in the moment, enjoying the evening I had reserved for truth. It took her 10 minutes to say anything. When she did, it came out as a whisper so low it barely crossed the table. You're serious? I looked up and nodded once. Calm, measured, like I was confirming the forecast. Yes. Her hand trembled near her water glass, not reaching for it, just hovering, as if unsure whether to drink, defend, or just flip the table and run. You'll ruin me, she said. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even pleading. It was recognition. I shrugged, still chewing. No, I said slowly. You did that already. I'm just shining a light on it. She flinched like the words had weight, like they cut deeper than anything in that folder. Another silence stretched. She tried to find her voice again, but the confidence was gone. The smirk, the practice charm, all of it stripped away by a single leather folder and a man who stopped playing dumb. And that's the thing they never expect. They mistake silence for submission, stillness for stupidity, patience for passivity, until the water rises and they realize you've been building the dam the whole time. The check came in a silver tray. The waiter placed it down gently, eyes cautious, probably briefed by the maitre d'. But I had something else. From my inner pocket, I slid out a thick cream envelope. No branding, no marks. Just wait. I set it on top of the check. Elise's eyes flicked toward it. What's that? I leaned back. Divorce papers. Already signed on my end. Clause 14 invoked. She blinked hard. Wait. Already signed. I'm not here for a debate, Elise. This was your final performance. Curtains down. She looked like she might vomit. Or cry. Or both. Dennis, I didn't think. No, I cut in. You didn't. For a moment, she just stared at me, mouth parted, lashes clumped, trying to conjure a scene that might redeem her. Then she reached across the table, hand trembling, fingers stretching, seeking mine. Her final trick. A gesture of connection. Maybe love. Maybe desperation. Maybe both. I looked at her hand, then looked at her, and I pulled mine back. Slowly, deliberately. She paused mid-motion, hand hanging in the air, suspended like a question with no answer. That's when the silence stopped being mine. It became hers. The kind that spreads like frost. The kind you can't reverse once it sets in. I placed my napkin on the table, stood, and adjusted my jacket. Elise, I said, voice calm. You refuse to be a wife to me in private. So tonight, I made sure you'll never be able to pretend in public. I turned and walked past the curious stares, the sympathetic nods from strangers who had seen enough to know the shape of betrayal. Behind me, I didn't hear her call my name. Because now, she was the one invisible. 3 weeks later, Elise tried to walk into the Langford Foundation's winter gala like nothing had changed. She wore the same velvet dress she'd once worn on my arm. Hair curled, chin up, that familiar veneer of polished elegance. She arrived in a black car she didn't own, borrowed, maybe, rented for the night, like so much else in her life. The man at the check-in table didn't even look up when she gave her name. Elise Hargrove, she said, smiling like it was still currency. The volunteer flipped through the clipboard, paused. I'm sorry, ma'am. Your name's not on the list. She gave a confused chuckle. It should be. Dennis Hargrove's guest. I've attended this gala the past 7 years. The woman next to him leaned in, whispered something in his ear. He looked again, this time slowly. Actually, your pass has been revoked. Elise froze. Revoked? What? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. The Whisper Network had done its job. The footage hadn't gone viral, but it hadn't needed to. It spread through the right inboxes. The discreet socialite group chats. The private email threads where optics were discussed with wine in hand and judgment in every word. A woman who cheats is one thing. A woman who builds a brand off her marriage while dismantling it behind closed doors? That's poison in their circles. She stood there a full 30 seconds, waiting for the world to pivot back to her. It didn't. She finally turned and walked out, heels clacking louder than they should have on marble, echoing like accusations. Later that night, she sent me a message. Just one. I made mistakes, but I didn't think you'd turn into someone so cold. I thought you were better than that. She waited for a response. An hour passed, then two, then a day. It never showed read, because I didn't open it. I sat on a park bench that afternoon, a light breeze nudging the pages of my newspaper. Same bench I used to walk to on Sundays before Elise convinced me weekend walks were boring. Now it was mine again. A little boy tossed breadcrumbs to the ducks nearby. An old man adjusted his hearing aid on the next bench over. Someone walked past me, maybe 40, maybe a bit older. Expensive shoes. Camel overcoat. He glanced down at the paper, then at me. You handled that with class, he said quietly. I looked up, met his eyes. He didn't smile, just nodded, like we both understood something that didn't need to be said. I gave a faint smile back and folded the paper. The headline wasn't important. Not anymore. Elise used to say her favorite part of our last name was how elegant it sounded when people introduced her at events. Now, it introduced her to silence. I walked home with my hands in my coat pockets. No music, no phone, no pressure. The piece wasn't loud or cinematic. It was earned, and she couldn't take that with a single word or 1,000. Because the name she used to wear like a designer label, she doesn't get to use it anymore. Not because I took it, but because she burned it.